Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This is Tariq Amin, lecturer, Department of English, Kuwait University of Science and Technology, Kuwait. A warm welcome to the course of Communication Skills. This is video number 1 of the lecture number 21. And our today's topic is listening. Let's have a look at the lecture outlines of today's class. In today's class, we are going to talk about listening. After that, we will talk about some facts about listening. Then we will discuss some of the differences between hearing and listening. And at the very end of the class, we will discuss some of the qualities of a good listener. So what is listening? Listening is basically one of the 4 major language skills. There are 2 broader language skills that are productive skills and receptive skills. Productive skills enable us to produce language, whereas receptive skills enables us to receive language, to receive information. So listening is one of the receptive skills because through this skill we receive language, because through this skill we receive information. It is the process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to spoken and non-verbal messages. So it is basically the process of receiving. We receive spoken symbols and non-verbal messages through listening, and we not only receive spoken symbols, but we also construct meaning from those spoken symbols, and after that we respond to such spoken symbols. We respond to such spoken symbols. And it is to hear something with full attention. When you hear something with full attention, it is basically listening. There is difference between listening and hearing, and we will discuss it in the next slides. Research studies show that listening efficiency is no better than 20 to 30% to capacity. When we listen to something, we just listen. We hear different things in our daily life, but we listen to only 20 to 30%, and the other information is lost. That means a considerable size of information is lost in the listening process. When we listen to different things, a considerable size of information is lost. The art of conversation lies in listening. This is one of the quotes of American Forbes. He says that the art of conversation lies in listening. Nature has given us one tongue but 2 ears. We can say that Almighty Allah has given us only one tongue, but He has given us 2 ears, one tongue and 2 ears, so that we may hear more, we may hear from others twice as we speak. So we should hear from others twice as much as we speak. It means that we should speak less and we should hear more. We should listen to different things more. We should speak less because we have got just one tongue as compared to 2 ears. We have 2 ears whereas we have one tongue. It means that we should speak less and hear more. Listening plays an important role in communication. Whenever you communicate with a person, you conversate with a person, listening plays an important role, because if you don't listen to something, you would not be able to respond to that, you would not be able to communicate with that person effectively. So listening plays an important role. It plays a vital role in communication. According to a research, total time spent on communicating, listening takes up 40 to 50%, speaking 20 to 25 to 30%, reading 11 to 16%, and writing about 9%. So the total time spent on communication, we spent 40 to 50% of our time in listening, and 25 to 30% of our time in speaking, and 11 to 16% of our time in reading, and only 9% of our time in writing something. So in the total time that we spent on communication, Listening takes up 40 to 50%, speaking 25 to 30%, and reading takes 11 to 16%, whereas writing takes about 9% time. These were some of the facts. Now let's discuss hearing versus listening. What is the difference between hearing and listening? So hearing is merely the ability of ear to sense sounds around one. When you sense sound around you, it is your ability. It is basically hearing. We hear unlimited sounds in our daily life, unlimited number of sounds around us each and every day. But that is not listening. That is just hearing, because we just hear to them. We don't focus on them. Whereas listening is something you consciously choose to do. Listening is something you consciously choose to do. We consciously choose to listen to something, choose to focus on something. When you focus on something, it becomes listening. It requires concentration. Listening requires concentration, whereas hearing does not require concentration, because you don't focus on that. And listening leads to learning. Listening leads to learning. When you listen attentively to something, you learn that. Whereas we hear lots of sounds in our daily life. Each and every day we listen thousands of sounds, but we don't learn from them. When we listen to something, it leads to learning. In our classes, students listen to us. When they listen carefully to us, they learn something. Whereas when they just hear us, they don't learn anything. So listening leads to learning. Hearing is an ability, whereas listening is a skill. A skill is something that is learned. A skill is something that is developed. A skill is something that is learned. Where hearing is just natural ability, listening is a skill. You need to acquire it. You spend time on developing it. Listening. We have discussed this point, that how can we develop our listening? How can we enhance our listening? Because there are people who have got good listening skills with their, and there are people who does not have such skills. They need to develop it. So it is actually a skill, whereas hearing is just an ability. We are neither aware nor we have control over the sounds we hear, whereas we listen to acquire knowledge. We listen to acquire knowledge and receive information. Through listening, we acquire knowledge, and through listening, we also receive information. We acquire knowledge and we receive information. And we are not control over the sound that we hear in our daily life. We don't have control over such sound that we hear on daily basis, whereas we have control over our listening. Hearing is simply receiving sound vibrations. It is just receiving sound. It is nothing more than receiving sound. Whereas listening is observing others' behavior that can add meaning to a message. When we listen to something, we also observe the behavior of other person, the behavior of the speakers, and such behaviors add meaning to the message. This is very much important point, that hearing is involuntary act. It is not voluntary. You don't have control over your ears. You would listen to each and everything that happens around you. You don't have control over your hearing. It is not voluntary act, whereas it is involuntary act. It is involuntary. It is not voluntary. On the other hand, listening is a voluntary act. You consciously choose to listen to something. You consciously select something to which you want to listen to. You consciously do it, whereas hearing is unconsciously. You unconsciously listen to you unconsciously hear different things. hear different sounds. In hearing, we are neither selective nor focused. We are not selective nor focused. We don't focus on something when we hear something. Whereas we are forced to hear all present sounds. We are forced to hear all present sounds. On the other hand, in listening, we are selective and focused only some wanted sounds. We are selective in listening. We hear different things unconsciously, and when we hear different things unconsciously, sometimes we try to select some sounds from those very sounds and we select them and we focus on them. When we focus on such sounds, that hearing becomes listening. When we focus on something that becomes listening, and we just focus on some wanted sounds. Another point is hearing is primary and continuous process. Hearing is primary and continuous process. It happens every now and then. It happens every now and then. It happens every time. Each and every time we hear something, when we are awake, we hear different sounds. We hear different sounds coming from different objects, coming from different things, coming from different people. Whereas listening is secondary and temporary process. It is secondary, it is not primary. And temporary process, we temporarily listen to something. We don't listen each and to different things each and every time. Listening process is just temporary. It is just for a specific period of time. For example, we just listen to 5 minutes out of 10 minutes in our 24 hours. Let's say we would listen to listen to different things only 8 hours or 10 hours, whereas our hearing process continues each and every time when we are awake, when we are not sleeping. The very last point is, someone rightly said, this is quotation, hearing is through ears. Hearing is through ears, but listening is through mind. When you involve your mind in hearing something, you focus on that, and that hearing becomes listening. That hearing becomes listening because you listen to it through your mind, not through your ears. You definitely listen to it through your ears, but the point is you involve your mind in that hearing, and that hearing becomes listening. So hearing is through ears, but listening is through mind. So in today's class we discussed these points, these major points. Let's have a look at the qualities of a good listener. The very first point is they pay attention to the person who is speaking. This is the very first quality of a good listener. Whenever you listen to something, you communicate with someone, you should try to pay attention to the person who is speaking to you. The very second quality of a good listener is they keep eye contact. They keep eye contact. This is one of the dilemma with today's listener, that whenever you talk to them, they usually look at their cell phone, they usually look at some other things. They don't keep eye contact. So one of the best qualities of a good listener is that they keep eye contact. As a good listener, all of us should keep eye contact with the audio, with the speaker. They show interest by nodding or by smiling at appropriate time. So they nod their heads. And they ask questions if anything is not clear when the speaker has finished. When something is not clear to you, you can ask it at the very end when the speaker has finished. Understand the speaker. They try to understand the speaker, and they gives feedback through non-verbal cues and non-verbal cues as well. Listens with mind and not overcome by emotion. They listen to the speakers with their mind and they don't let their emotions to overcome them. They are not overcome by their emotions. Focus on content, not on style. They focus on the very content that is being delivered by the speaker, and they don't focus upon the style of speaking, but they focus upon what is being said by the speakers. They do not try to change the subject. They don't try to change the subject, but they listen to the speakers carefully, and they don't try to change the subject. They listen to what the speaker said, and they don't try to change the subject, or don't try to change the focal point of the conversation, of the communication. Responding non-verbally, they also, along with verbal response, they respond non-verbally as well. Avoid distractions. They try their level best to avoid distractions. Nowadays there are lots of distractions that distracts us while listening to different people in communication. Focus on the person speaking, not the environment. You shouldn't let the environment distract you from listening. Do not interrupt in the middle. Very much important point. Whenever you listen to someone, whenever you communicate with a person, you should listen to him completely. You should listen to what he or she is trying to convey. You should listen to him completely. Never ever try to interrupt any person in the middle. Let him complete, and after he completes his statement, you can contribute to communication, but don't try to interrupt in the middle. Reference is Effective Business Communication by Herta M. Murphy. Thank you very much for listening to the video. Allah Hafiz.